Bakar, welcome back to today's video. Today we're going to look at 5 burning questions ahead of Gameweek 2, and we're going to look at your team going into next week and how it did last week. First off, I owe you a massive thank you. You convinced me in your final draft that you did on the channel to switch from Kane to Haaland. I was at the game and it could have been a nightmare, but it was a dream. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, John. I wanted you to live a little. If you were going to watch the game, I mean, it would have been a horrifying experience if you didn't own Haaland, watching him score goal after goal with his 50% ownership. So I'm glad you made the right choice. The decision was yours after all. So I mean, credit where it's due. Well played.
Yeah, it was great fun. It could have been an absolute disaster, but if anyone wants to see how that went, we did a mini vlog on it, just over 4 minutes. You can check it out on the channel. But I'm happy I wasn't stubborn, and I suppose I want to ask you about that as a concept in FPL. You know, particularly making content, you can feel often like if you say something, you need to stand by your word, or you need to kind of go with the crowd, otherwise you'll just be shot at. Yeah. Like changing after being so pro Kane all pre-season was the best decision I could have made, and it felt like the right decision.
Exactly. I mean, and credit where it's due because you've got to be flexible. It's very important not to be stubborn in FPL. I mean, I know a lot of people who did a very similar change to you and they've been duly rewarded. And it's sometimes you just have to forget about what past experiences have been with a certain player and just go with what makes more rational sense.
Speaking of those two guys, everyone was debating pre-season. Now it's at the stage where everyone wants Haaland for Gameweek 2 for Bournemouth after the brace. Kane obviously blanked, albeit Spurs looked pretty good. It's too late for anyone watching this video to have a direct switch because one of them's went up in price and one of them's went down in price. So the question of pivoting to Haaland from Kane, is it a good choice, is what I wanted to throw at you. But ultimately, for someone to do that, it's going to take 2 moves and a -4 at this stage. So how would you play it if you hadn't made the move already?
I would still cut my losses and make the move. I would take a hit to do it. Simply because I think that Haaland is the best captaincy option this week. And when you have a nailed Manchester City forward who has the fixtures that he has, Bournemouth at home, then Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest in the next 4. Those games could be anything. City could score 4 or 5. I mean, they other than the Newcastle game, 3 of those could be cricket scores on paper, and I won't be surprised to see that happen. Especially when you consider that now Haaland is confirmed to be on penalties. Pep said after the game that if someone takes the ball off him on penalties, he's going to punch him. So there's no way he's going to let go of his penalties, especially after scoring. And when you look at over the past 3 seasons, Manchester City have had at least 9 or more penalties awarded in each one of them. So this is a very big factor now to have a Man City forward who's nailed on for starts, who has the play style is built around him where he's going to be the talisman and he's going to get plenty of chances, because from what I saw, it was very apparent that the whole play was directed towards Haaland and he will get plenty of opportunities to poach. And especially when you consider that historically he's been an XG over performer, I don't really see a world where you can afford to ignore him at this point in time, because it's very, very obvious that he is the go-to choice on paper, and especially when you consider his ownership, which is going to go through the roof now.
Does he score 30 goals this season?
If he stays fit, yes. But
injury.
Again, that's always been a question mark with him, is his fitness. But if he stays fit, then sure.
Yeah, I just can't see a world if he's fit and plays, let's call it 30 games, 32 games. I don't see a world where he doesn't score 30 goals just based on that team. But okay, we've spoke about Haaland. We're gonna throw the toys out of the pram. We're gonna make 2 moves. We're gonna lose 4 points at this stage to get Haaland in. So Kane out, Haaland in. You're gonna need to make room elsewhere. We'll maybe get to a few of those sort of decisions later. This leads me on to captaincy for next week. You've already given us a bit of a spoiler in terms of what you do. You said you think he is the best captaincy option next week. A lot of people will be going for Salah. He has Palace. Is there any sort of discussion here? Or do you think it's just point blank? You're overthinking
I mean, obviously it's Mo Salah. It's Mo Salah. So obviously it's always worth debating. And Salah does have a terrific record against Crystal Palace as well. So it's definitely worth a discussion. However, I've been very set on Haaland for a while, and I mean the performance at the weekend has just sealed my decision. And you've also got to factor in that the Palace defense is better than City. Sorry, the Palace defense is better than Bournemouth. That's the way I look at it. Yeah. And there's also the fact that I don't let one performance put me off my initial assessment that Bournemouth will be a team to target. Yes, they performed well at the weekend, but it's just one game, and they're still decimated in terms of injuries. So for me, Haaland is very much the clear choice, and the bookmakers. I was going through their the odds. They agree with me. I mean, Haaland is by far and away the most likely anytime goal scorer on paper. So that's what I think should be done. Another thing on Salah is that you've got to factor in how Nunez will impact him. I know he scored and got a 12-digit haul this weekend, but I think we might be seeing a change in the way Liverpool play, because Salah historically tends to hog the big chances, but now I see Nunez getting in those positions which Salah used to. So I want to see how Nunez impacts Salah as a whole in terms of Liverpool's gameplay, and I think this is a good week to revisit that.
And speaking of Nunez, like in terms of him, Gabriel Jesus blanked in game week one. Some people who are looking to get out of Kane, but maybe don't want to make the two transfers, take the -4 to go to Haaland, but they don't like Kane. I think they should be more patient if that's the case, but they're looking to get out. Darwin is a guy a lot of people have turned their head to, after that performance where he seemed to have ample opportunities and did very well. Is Darwin someone who you would be advocating going for this week, or is it firmly, as you say, a case of wait and see?
So now a lot of us have triple Liverpool in our squads already. So I mean, there are people who have Robertson and Diaz as their third picks. I don't think it's worth shifting them out immediately. However, if you have two Liverpool, then I have no problems with Darwin, because, as I said, he's going to hog the big chances. He's an XG machine in terms of the chances he's going to get. So that's the way I look at it, because I don't think that Robertson or Diaz will become poor picks overnight on paper, because they're still very solid picks. And if you are buying Darwin, then realistically, I would assume that Jesus will be the fall guy, right? And I don't really like that, especially at this point when I look at Arsenal's fixtures. Arsenal have Leicester, Bournemouth, Fulham in their next three. So that's a very strong run of fixtures they have. And I like what I saw from Jesus. He played really well at the weekend. I thought he was fairly unfortunate not to come away without any returns. So then again, I just think it's very premature to write him off on the basis of one blank, and I would wait and see and come back and reassess next week.
Another big debate in the community is around certain Chelsea midfielder Mason Mount, one of those 8 million midfielders a lot went for. But, he scored 3 points the weekend. He's owned by almost 10% of people. And a lot of people are debating, get rid of him. Should I get Kulusevski in? Should I do this? Should I do that? What are your thoughts on that kind of 8 million midfielder slot and Mason Mount more specifically?
He was very poor at the weekend. No chances created, no shots in the box. I realize that we need to have a bit more of a sample size to discuss underlying statistics, but the early sub was worrying, actually. I didn't expect him to get subbed around the 63rd or the 64th minute mark, because usually what you get from Mount is, he gets the significant majority of minutes in that Chelsea team. So it was a bit of a surprise, and it was very off putting. In fact, I even tweeted after the game that, whichever City mid looks good, I'd probably sell Mount for him. But as it turns out, I'm not really sure which Manchester City mid is the one to go for, simply because there has been no standout in terms of output, in terms of performances, in terms of statistics. So I would give Mount one more week, and if he looks good, he has Leeds next week. So I would probably stick with him, simply because I'm not really sure which City mid is the one to go for. But yes, I mean, so the signs are worrying, and if he looks poor again, then he's definitely one you have to monitor from next week onwards.
And we're talking about maybe pivoting from Mount to one of the City midfielders, but obviously none of them really have stood out. As I said, I was at the game, and Foden looks incredible, but not in terms of FPL. And it's a very different type of game than just the eye test in terms of football, because his touch, honestly, when you see it in person, it's absolutely stupid. But like, Mahrez didn't get enough minutes, really. Grealish was there when he got the ball. He seemed to slow it up. Okay, he created a chance for Haaland and had a shot, but like, I have Grealish, and I'm just like, And I suppose the question there then becomes, okay, we're talking about pivoting from Mount to one of the City guys. If you already have one of the City guys, is there somewhere you should be going, or do you stick with it? Because obviously we saw Madison got the return, Kulusevski lit it up. Maybe there's room there for a pivot out of City, but what do you think?
When you look at the fixtures for the other 8 million mids, I don't think there's an obvious escape route this week. I mean, you were speaking about Madison; he has Arsenal away. You're speaking about Kulusevski; he has Chelsea away. And then there's Mount, who's Spurs. So when you have a City mid at home to Bournemouth, regardless of the risk of rotation, you have to keep him. It's as simple as that. Whether it's Grealish, whether it's Mahrez, whether it's Foden, they're all worth holding on to. And I know they none of them looked uh, a standout pick in terms of their output against West Ham, but it's Bournemouth, and I expect City to trounce them by 4 or 5 goals at least. So there's a very good chance that the likes of Foden, Mahrez, Grealish will be amongst the points, whichever of the two start. I mean, I've been scouring through the fan forums, and the majority of the fans seem to think that Foden will start, and the other slot is between Grealish and Mahrez. So I would simply just hold and pray. That's my advice.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And before we get on to maybe your team and how you got on last week and what you're thinking of doing going into next week, are there any of those guys, every season there's always like budget guys who come out of the gutter that you don't expect. Pascal Gross did very, very well, but I'm just want to ask you about like him or, Ward Prowse had a goal, De Silva did his thing, going up top, Mitrovic surprised a few with his brace, Share at the back, Saliba, who everyone, myself included, was ranting and raving about preseason, did really
Yep.
well. Zinchenko, I actually wasn't a fan, but he had a cracking game. Are there any of these guys? Is there anyone that's come out of the woodwork? I think another thing we can take away from the week, I'm giving you a rant and seeing what you come back with, is even though the likes of Perisic and Doherty didn't play like a lot of people expected, the Spurs fullbacks that did play from the start looked very attacking and got returns. So just in terms of other takeaways from the week or other players to keep an eye out for, was there any other thoughts on Bakar's head?
4.5 midfielder Andres Pereira, who's been very popular. We've been talking him up throughout in our preseason videos. He was one who really stood out for me, despite the fact that he didn't get any returns. He was playing almost next to Mitrovic, and I really liked what I saw from Fulham. I thought they were fantastic, and they gave Liverpool a very good game. I think when their fixtures improve from game week 8 onwards, they are a team which you can invest in, and Mitrovic in particular is someone who I have my eye on from that run. But speaking of Pereira, I think he could be playable in the easier fixtures. When Fulham, for example, in game week 3, Fulham have Brentford at home. I think that's a playable fixture for Pereira, simply because of the positions he's taking up, and he's also on set pieces. So that's just something worth monitoring. I don't think he's a 4.5 million midfielder at all. I think he's worth 5.5 million. To be very honest, he's definitely underpriced.
So that was your key takeaway. Don't go running from Andreas.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's something I really had an eye on, and he really caught my eye this week.
Well, look, Bakar, what we want to do now is we want to have a look at your previous game week and how you got on. So you managed to amass a grand total of 73 points. And that was just 1 point behind me, the guy who inevitably toppled you in the My Team Series table. So maybe there was something in that. I got 74 because of your advice. So 73 points. That's a great game week. I think you would have took that. You would have took that going in, wouldn't you?
For sure. I mean, I think it's a very solid start. And what's important, John, at this stage is to just stay on par with the rest of the pack. You don't want to be left behind at this stage of the season. You don't want to leave yourself chasing early on,
Yeah.
because then you have to take unnecessary risks. So it's very important uh, to pick and choose when to attack. And I don't think this is the time to be to go uber differential, because at this stage of the season you stick with the safe team, and then when you have enough data, enough information to attack, then you pick and choose your opportunity. So I'm very happy with 73 points. I think it's a very solid start.
Yeah, starting sort of in around the top 10% is a great start. As you say, not falling behind. A lot of people obviously had Kane. They've panicked and went to Haaland. Maybe some other people made a few other decisions that didn't go their way. The Leicester goalkeeper thing maybe didn't go to plan initially. 1 point from Ward. A lot of people went for the 4 millions there. A lot of small margins there that have kind of contributed to lower ranks this week. But obviously it's a marathon, not a sprint. A lot of variance game week 1. It'll be interesting to see where we go. Now, looking at your team, you got off to a good start on Friday. We had Ramsdale there. I say we because we both did. Ramsdale, Martinelli doing the business. Jesus, a bit of a disappointment, but thankfully it was a disappointment for the large majority of the game in terms of players, pretty much everyone. So it didn't really matter that he didn't do that well, because it wasn't like you were punished by too many other players, if you know what I'm saying. Reece James and Cancelo doing the business. The Liverpool lads, that was disappointing, conceding 2 goals to Fulham. Is it worth reading into? in terms of their defence, or would Fulham just have a great day out? Do you know what I mean? Or is it one of those where the Liverpool
I mean,
defence have
it's
doubled
just
up?
one. It's just one game at the end of the day. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't want to reach too much into it. I mean, I am still sure that Trent and Robertson will come good very soon.
Yeah, they've enough proven track record there that one game shouldn't maybe
Exactly.
scare us, albeit 2 points from two of them isn't a great return on average based on their historic scores. And then Bailey and Neto, anything there? Did either of them disappoint you? They're obviously two of the kind of most popular budget picks in
Yeah,
midfield.
to be fair, yes, I was disappointed. I was expecting from returns from at least one of them. So for them to blank was a bit of a bummer. And the one good thing though was that despite the fact that they blanked, both of them played really well. Bailey especially was very encouraging in a very poor Villa performance. He was given 90 minutes, which was very encouraging for a 5 million mid. I wasn't that convinced whether he's going to last the 90, but he did, and he was playing almost furthest up the field. So that's something worth keeping an eye on, and I'm going to give him another chance against Everton in game week 2.
Very good. So this is how your team got on last week. You know, as we said, good start, but a lot of people will be here to wonder about next week, the team reveal. So at time of recording, you're set on no changes. You're set on just rolling the same team out and keeping the transfer.
Absolutely. I don't see a pressing transfer to make over here. I think there's nothing new that we've learned in terms of anything significant. And I would like to give myself more time and information heading into Game Week 3. If you have two free transfers, that would allow me much more flexibility. I don't want to knee jerk right now because I simply don't think we have enough information to base a transfer on. And Perisic is on my bench, and I hope he can start by game week 3. That's a factor that I have to consider now. Luckily, Spurs do play in the early kickoff on in game week 3, so hopefully we'll get news on Perisic by
Hmm.
then. So he's going to be on my bench this week. I'll monitor and assess what's up with him on the weekend. Other than that, I think I'm fairly set. Andreas will be my first sub, and then the team will remain the same. I have 11 home fixtures this week, so hopefully I can accumulate a lot of points with Haaland as captain.
Brilliant. So Andreas first sub, Perisic dropping the second sub, probably the main change, if not the only change of the week.
Yeah,
And if people want to just follow you to see if you do end up going for any changes, they can find you on Twitter. Your handle's on the screen. If we plug this into the My Team tool on Fantasy Football Hub, you come out with a 98% team rating, which looks ahead over the next 5 game weeks, weighting most heavily towards game week 2. And your game week rating going into next week is 94%, which is a pretty decent game week rating, to be quite honest. On top of that, over 70 predicted points, 70.3 predicted points. If I offered you 70 now, Bakar, would you take it next week?
absolutely, hands down.
Hands down. I love it. And if you want to check your team rating for the upcoming game week, head over to the link in the description. You can head over to the My Team tool for free and check out how you're going to do next week. Do let us know in the comments, as always, how you're projected to do. If you've enjoyed this, do subscribe to the channel, like the video, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.
Good luck.